Today's class is actually a very interesting class because it is so relatable and practical, and it could generate a lot of discussion. How do you measure this? If we have time at the end to talk about it, it's a very, very fascinating class because, well, let's see. What are we up to in this discussion? The last thing we said was that Hashem draws down his energy, his light into the world as it goes through one contraction to a tzimtzum, to a lower level, to a concealment, to a level, and all the processes. It comes down in 613, so to speak, parts or channels. These correspond to the 613 mitzvahs, which corresponds to the 613 parts of a person's soul, which corresponds to the 613 limbs and parts of a person's body, which corresponds to the 613 ways that the world is developed in parts of the world. There's a system that Hashem made. But then we said, this is all talking in general. But if you want to get into details, it's millions and millions, billions and billions. It's endless how many sparks and sub-sparks. As you said, every single mitzvah, while it has that mitzvah is one of the 613, but it might have hundreds and hundreds of laws. Let's take, for an example, a mezuzah. A mezuzah, to write it, it might just be one mitzvah with 22 lines, but there are hundreds of laws about a mezuzah, for the writing of the letters, how it could stand. So the details, and that's sub-details. How about a doorway like this, a doorway like that? How about there's no doorway? How about if there's an opening? How about there's no opening? How about if you create one halfway? And that's only one sub-part of a sub-mitzvah of a detail. And this goes on and on and on. And the same thing is true. As we know, we say Adam HaRishon was the first general soul, the primordial soul, that big holy soul that encompassed all the Jewish people. And he was meant to be the father of the Jews. That's his identity. Because of the sin of the tree of knowledge, he actually becomes the father of all mankind. Because you might say, 1 second, who else would have been the father? Well, it would have been just holy people. He created the possibility of people that weren't Jewish, which was the plan, of course. But the bottom line is, now this was transferred to who? To Yaakov. Yaakov got the new job of becoming that man that encompassed all the souls. So Adam HaRishon, his soul was made up of generally of 613 parts, but really made up of millions and millions and millions that encompassed all the Jews from Avraham. That's where so to speak, Adam's holy soul was shot forward to Avraham, to the tribes, all the way it covers all the way through the coming of Mashiach. That means when it says that we will finally be as many, as numerous as the stars on the heavens and the sand and the seashore, that's going to be when Mashiach comes, when you'll see millions and millions and millions and millions of Yidden. And all those souls were encompassed already in the soul of Adam, and then transformed for the soul of Yaakov. Like it says, Yaakov, Shofred the Yaakov, Kein Shofred Adam HaRishon, which we translate usually mean the face of Yaakov was like the face of Adam. But we know it means the beauty of Yaakov, meaning Yaakov had that beauty. What beauty? The beauty of Adam before the sin of the tree of knowledge. Yaakov had that. That was passed on to every leader. As you know, every leader is called a Nasi, Tzutza Yaakov Avinu, the spark of Yaakov. But Yaakov accomplished all that. Now, in this last class on letter number 7, we're going to come to the beginning of the letter again and go analyze and close up everything. Based on all the above, now we can appreciate. Remember the very beginning we said that Yaakov, it says Yaakov built an altar and he called it Keil Elyon. And we said 2 general opinions. If Yaakov called, well, there's a third opinion too, that he was talking about the altar. But the 2 general opinions are if he said that Yaakov called God Keil Elyon, or did God call Yaakov Keil Elyon? Who said this? It says that he called him Keil Elyon. Simply means Yaakov called God Keil Elyon. Now we're going to go, and a deeper interpretation is that God called Yaakov Keil Elyon. What does that mean? Now we're going to answer that question. The answer is that let's first take the simple way, that it means Yaakov called God. Yaakov called God Keil Elyon. It was a prayer. God, I want to do Keil. What's Keil? Keil is Chesed. Keil, Aleph Lamed is God's name of Chesed. And he said, I want to draw down Keil Elokei Elyon. He said, actually, Keil, I want to draw down Keil. I want to draw down Elokei Elyon. This godliness, I want to draw down into my soul. The Neshoma, the essence of it, I want to draw it down. But the way we learn in Chassidus that it was Hashem calling Yaakov, that Hashem was saying, Yaakov, you have inside you, Keil, it's drawn down inside you. You have godliness inside you. Meaning the essence of God is found within every Jew. because Yaakov passes down to all the Jewish people. He is our soul holder, soul originator after Adam. So Yaakov passed on to all the Jewish people this godly soul. So what does it mean? God called. That within Yaakov and through all the Jewish people is a part of God. Let's see this inside, and we'll take it from here. Okay, we're on page Kuf Yud Beis, and we are approximately. Yeah, but we're going to start. We're going to go back one line, even though it's about a dot. You're right, the dot's over there. Let's go back one line to the fourth line. V'zehu, page 323. Sorry, 223 or Kuf Yud Beis. Okay, last three words on the line. And this is what it means when we say that God called Yaakov. You are Kael Elokei Yisrael. You are drawn down inside you, the God of the Jewish people, meaning the soul of the Jewish people. What does it mean, Elokei Yisrael? You can say the God of the Jewish people, or the God, the souls, which is the Jewish people. Kael Elokei Yisrael. Kael, the word Kael, Loshen Hamshachas Ha'ara Me'eretz Baruch Hu. The word Kael, from the word Chesed, is a Chesed expression, means drawing down. Hamshachas Ha'ara, drawing down the light. Me'ed Ein Seif Baruch Hu, Hashem's infinite essence. Me'ahelim, which is in the hidden state. El Hagili, into revealed state. Meaning, reveal, you Yaakov, reveal within every single Jew the Neshoma. Laha'ir, to shine. Must say to shine in his neshama. So Yaakov Avinu brings down and reveals, he really reveals his truth of God's soul that's found within every single Jewish person, which is really the role of a Rebbe. What does a Rebbe do? What's the role of a Rebbe? If you want to make it very simple, to reveal the potential of every Jew. Your soul was given powers, potentials, opportunities. Reveal the soul that is dormant, that's concealed, that's covered over. A Rebbe reveals, how do we explain that? You will connect the Jewish people. You reveal the truth. You reveal them and connect them. Ukameisha Kasov. And also, where do you find that the word Kael means like Hamshach or Chesed? Like it says, God, Kael Hashem, Vaya'er Lanu, and he shines to us. And it says, V'acharav Kol Yishrei Leiv. Then it said after him, all Yishrei Leiv. And the Rebbe, all the meaning Yishrei Leiv means that those who have a straight heart. But the Rebbe explains in a footnote on the Tanya that Yishrei is short for Yisrael. Because the word Yashar and the word Kael together says Yashar Kael is Yisrael, which, by the way, is one of the things, when we daven Shema, there are many, many meditations to have in the first verse, like a lot. So, but one of them is when you say the word Shema Yisrael, here, let it permeate, let it enter you. Yisrael stands for Yashar Kael, that aspect of the Jew which is infinite. Let your soul be touched and inspired and feel it. Who is this? Who are these people that are called the Yesharim, Yishrei Leiv, these people that have the straight hearts? Those are the people, ha'iskim b'teira b'mitzvahs. Those are the people that are involved and do Torah. They learn Torah, they do mitzvahs, and they are Meir Eid Hashem Ein Seif Baruch Hu. They shine, and it shines within them the light of Hashem, b'bchinas gili b'nishmasam. And this shines in a revealed way in their soul. In other words, these 613 channels that come to shine into this world, when a person does a mitzvah, which is made up of 613 parts, he has shine in his soul of the 613 parts, the essence of God or the light of God. In other words, you take that imagination of it. Usually we have plugs here of 3 prongs. You plug it into a 3-prong hole, everything matches. Imagine with 613 prongs, and you connect it. A little trickier, and sometimes they bend a little bit, and that's frustrating. But when you connect them, every one of those prongs are actually carrying a certain message. That's why, in an outlet is just power. But in the computer, like in a printer, it's carrying certain, transferring certain messages. This is the power of Neshoma in a person's body, doing a soul. When you take your physical hand, powered by your soul, and you do a mitzvah from God, it brings down that light, and that's how you bring down in your soul, reveal that light. That's what it means.
That's what they call a connector.
That's the connectors.
Mitzvah.
And that's why mitzvahs are connectors, exactly. That's why a mitzvah doesn't just mean commandment. Yeah. It means deeper connection, because that you're connecting to these 613, to your 613 parts, both in your physical body and in your spiritual identity as a soul. Now, this is describing the first part of the pasuk. Ashreinu matef chalkeinu. How lucky we are that we were given a soul. We had a question at the beginning of the thing. What does it mean every person was given a soul? But sorry, what does it mean? What do we mean that we are fortunate for our chelik? Everyone has, we said in the very second chapter of Tanya, a chelik elika mimal mamish. So the first thing we're saying when we get up in the morning and we say the morning prayers, and we say, Ashreinu matev chalkenu, how lucky we are that we are the chosen people, Yishrei Leiv, that we have a soul, a part of God, that can go and do mitzvahs and go and connect to Hashem with our soul and with our body. And now it has a much more beautiful definition. And that's the Keilah L'Kei Yisrael. Now, when is this done? So generally it's done in all mitzvahs, but it's one particular mitzvah that it's done more than any other one. U'zeman gili zeh, and this revelation of our identity of our soul is b'yeser se'eis, b'yeser eis. It's more in quantity and more in quality. That shines from our soul into our mind and into our heart. Who b'shas hatfila is by davening, like it says elsewhere. When do you have this strongest? That's by time of davening. When you do davens, because by davening you have to engage not just your mind but your heart, and you have to be engaged. You have to be present. Usually your feelings in general are not that important. It's not about your feelings. Do the mitzvah. The less you feel, we had this a couple of days ago in Hayem Yem. I think it was Hayem Yaziv Rasha Dakev Ishav Machshavaisav. Yaziv Rasha Dakev Ishav Machshavaisav. That means a person should put aside his own thoughts and feelings. Just do what Hashem said. Don't try and be such a chacham. Don't try to understand everything. Do what Hashem said. By davening, you're supposed to understand and feel till you get emotional to the point that people that daven, I can't say it happens to me, but I'm sure it happens to everybody else there, that you get schwitzy and you get emotional and you can get flushed in your face and you could partially be lost and enthralled in a moment of absolute emotional experience because the words touch you, the experience touches you, the truth touches you. Yes, you're supposed to feel the davening permeate not just your mind, but your heart. This explains the first part of the statement, Ashreinu matev chalkenu. But the question is, what does it mean? What does it mean? The word gerel is a funny word because gerel means it's chance. Generally, when you say chelik, I say, okay, everybody, I'm giving out jobs. I'm going to figure out you're good at folding napkins. You'll be a napkin folder. You know, everybody gets your job. You have other qualities at work. You have many other qualities. We're just looking at the napkins here. But basically, everyone's given a job. It makes sense. A gerel means, imagine a person has one friend. Imagine you have one friend who's an accountant, one friend who's a doctor, one friend who's a lawyer, and you say, I don't know who to go to for my medical issues. I'm going to put all three names in a hat, and I'm going to pick one out. That's not smart. You want to go to the doctor for medical issues, and your lawyer for legal advice. So what does it mean? Hashem gives us a gerel. It's like a lottery. What does that mean? So Alter Rebbe is going to tell us something fascinating. This is really the rest of the chapter is this beautiful idea. Every single person, their chelik is not just, he's going to connect now the word chelik and gerel. Every single person with a different mission, a different responsibility, a different journey, and a different story. And we have to know that these stories didn't come to us for any logical reason. Hashem gives us this in the highest depth of himself. There is no logical reason why one person was chosen that your mitzvah is that you got to make sure you focus on the mitzvah of davening. You got to focus on the mitzvah of tzedakah. We got all of them. But you have one mitzvah that's your mitzvah. It's your, and you see it in life. Many people have a mitzvah that they love. Some people are so into Havdalah. Some people are so into having guests. Some people are so into not talking during davening. Some are so into talking during davening. It's another mitzvah. But basically, because obviously Yisrael, they talk the whole time. So, but every person has a mitzvah that they really, and you'll see some people are always screaming at someone else or talking to a person. I'm so careful. I never miss my tillim. I never miss my this. I cover my hair so perfectly. Now, every person has their, why is that? And somebody else, not so much. It's because you have a particular soul journey. You have a particular responsibility. And this that you have, this soul has nothing to do with any logical reason. Hashem chose your soul to do a certain thing. Now, these souls come into the world. Now, all the souls have to do all the mitzvahs. That's why a soul will come back many times. The only soul mitzvah you don't have to do are laws that apply, mitzvah apply to a king or to a particular leader or position, Kohen Gadol. You didn't have to do those. They'll do it for you because they have you in mind. But every other mitzvah you have to do. That means your soul will have to come back. I don't know if this is a fact. I'm just saying this. One says a boy, one says a girl, or maybe there are boy souls. This part I don't know. I'm not sure there's boy souls and girl souls. You have to come back at each one. I'm not getting in there. I just tell you we should look into for further classes. But every soul has to come back in different generations, different times, because there are different mitzvahs that a person might do. A lot of times you have stories that a soul came back because it lived here before. It did 600 mitzvahs and never did the mitzvah of going to shul. Never did the mitzvah of whatever. The stories of there's a very beautiful. This story, by the way, is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because of the story. But what's amazing about it, the Frierdiker Rebbe told somebody once, this story should be told to children before they go to sleep at night. And to me, it's a bit of a scary story. And it's not a scary story, but it's a sad story. And the short of the story is about this child who, this child was born, and he grows up, and either he's not, I forget if he's not born Jewish, or he's born Jewish, but he was taken away. I forget exactly what happened at birth. I heard this story a long time ago. But in any case, he's being raised as a child of a very wealthy nobleman, and his teacher is a Jewish guy, but no one knows he's a secret Jew. He one time catches the teacher davening, and he finds out that he's Jewish, and he forces his teacher to teach him, and he starts learning and ends up becoming either a convert or he goes back to his true source. I forget which is the detail, but the bottom line is, what's this story so important? Because I'm telling you the end of the story first. It's because not meant to be a surprise. The story is because there's this family who never had children, and they come to the Baal Shem Tov, and they beg for children. Hashem blesses them with a child, and the child dies within a year. They finally have a child, he dies. And the Baal Shem Tov comes back and tells them, this is the story of this boy. That this boy he lived his entire life as a very religious Jew, but he never nursed a Jewish mother. And in heaven, he missed that one thing in life. And therefore he came to you and he lived his life for a year just to nurse a Jewish mother. And this is what's the point of this story. There are many, many cases of a soul coming down for one particular thing. He had to be here. It's so sad or so good or so exciting. You have a mitzvah you came for.
But that is very hard to understand.
Very hard to understand, but that's the point. Now, the question is, how does somebody know which is your mitzvah? How do you know? So there's three things that Hashem does to let you know which is your mitzvah. And there are three, it's called clues Hashem gives you. I did it a while ago with the teens. We did a thing called escape room. And I've done it a number of times, and it's fascinating. One thing you learn in the escape room is not a single thing in the room that has no reason. If there's a clock that's broken, there's a reason. It's supposed to tell you a message. There's a paper on the floor, there's a message. If there's a bar of soap on everything, and you got to figure out what it means. In other words, Hashem means that you learn from every single thing Hashem put into your story, there's a reason. In other words, you would look into the world and you ask yourself, where am I living? I'm living in Wisconsin. Okay, so my job is not to develop land of Israel. It's not my mitzvah. Not that I can do Meister and Truma, but that's the guys in Israel. What's my job? Okay, I have people that I meet all the time. Oh, that's an opportunity to have guests. Maybe my job is to have guests. Hashem will give you clues in your life story, where you live, where you're gonna encounter, what your job entails, what your story. Hashem gives you a lot of clues. That's one thing. It's called clues in where you live, where you end up. By chance, you move to this city, you get stuck in that town. Look what happens in your Hashgacha Pratis. They're all clues to what your job is. That's one thing. Clue number two, or focus number two, is what are my gifts and what do I love? What do I enjoy? Some people are very talented at baking. Some are very talented at singing. Some are very talented at organizing. Some are very talented. What do I enjoy? What's my nature? My nature means what I'm good at, what I enjoy. So if I'm, for an example, very good at baking challah, or I'm very good at what? Folding napkins. That means my job is, and if I'm going to try and be the baker and someone else folds the napkins, you're not doing your gift. Your gift is a napkin folder. It's incredible to do that. So the bottom line is, your gifts are your gifts and your enjoyment is the second clue. What do I enjoy? But the third clue is the most fascinating. The third clue is there is one person who knows, or one entity that knows your mitzvah, and that person's job is to make sure you don't do it. It's called the Yetzer Hara. There's one mitzvah you say, I will do anything except this. Oh, that's the one you should do. Because your Yetzer Hara knows what you came here for. He knows the one reason you came here is to Matzah Shabbos, wash and have a meal with bread, let's say, for an example. I'm saying an example because I don't like to do it. I'm after Shabbos, not in the mood of washing. There's a mitzvah to wash Matzah Shabbos. So he's going to make that your least interested mitzvah. And he's going to say, you know what, Matzah Shabbos, I just ate a full meal. I'm not washing, I'll have a cup of tea. Hello? If you don't want to wash Matzah Shabbos, that's what you should be doing. What do I do if I have like 40 things I don't want to do? It's like, anyway, it says, find out what's the one thing you really don't want to do, or you really have or really it's more than that, the most challenging mitzvah to you. It's the most challenging. I had a friend in yeshiva. He said, I will do anything in Yiddishkeit except sit and learn. I cannot sit in one place and learn. I'll go put film on people. I'll have a job. I'll give stuck. I can't sit and learn. You better sit and learn. So in other words, you find that, so these three clues in life is help us define who we are. It is the circumstances, the place where we live, Hashem's clues, Neshgacha Pratis. It is our talents and our interests. Do we have a geschmack in it? Do I enjoy it? Is a certain? It's not a contradiction to your to the third thing, which is the most challenging one. Because sometimes, for example, I really would have enjoy in being in good shape. I just have no interest in exercising. So it's not a challenge. I mean, it's not a contradiction to having geschmack as I'm not doing. Many people who are the most talented at singing hate singing or playing the piano. I hate playing the piano. But you're gifted. I know, but I don't want to play. So just because you're gifted in it and having the appreciation of it doesn't mean you're going to do it. So these three things are our clues. But you should know it's not logical. It's not like, you know what? Why did they get this? That's why it says, how fortunate is our lot. In other words, to realize and appreciate, not only I have a part of God, but I got a unique one. Hashem gave me part 32b, you know? And by the way, even in a particular mitzvah, like we said, mitzvah 613, but in a mitzvah itself, there are hundreds and hundreds of parts. For example, let's say the mitzvah having guests. The mitzvah to have guests. Some people love cooking for guests. Some love hosting guests. Some love cooking for other people and bringing meals to hospitals. Mm-hmm. In each mitzvah, there are some ways to do it. Some love to help someone else cooking. Some love to, to arrange, to fundraise for them. What's your enjoyment? Maybe your mission in life? You were born just to have guests in your home. And that's your whole job in life, besides doing everything else. It's a primary job, I should say. And that way will help us understand also Gemara and Shabbos. Let's see this inside.
Would you exclude also the mitzvot that only you can do in Israel? Because you said three. If you are a king, if you are a Kohen.
No, mitzvahs have to do in Israel, no. And you'll see.
Thank you.
I'll tell you why. Okay. Because Hashem made it that some people live in certain generations when you could do a mitzvah in Israel. You lived in Israel one time, your soul. Your soul comes back now and lives in America. You don't do certain mitzvahs. Your soul will come back one time and be rich, one time be poor. Give it tzedakah, give it your soul gets chances to do all different experiences. And when it does all the things, it's done. Check it off, done. Now you just sit and relax and watch everyone else work, So he said like this. So here's going to go and explain now this last part by the dot in the middle of the page. Even though this general story of a person having a neshama and a general job of the 613 commandments applies to everyone equally. Everyone has to put out, if you're a man, you got to put on tefillin and do this. If you're a woman, you got to light Shabbos candles and do that. So even though everyone has their general mitzvahs that everyone does together, nevertheless, he's coming to address the word geril here. But not all the souls and the spirits and the souls are the same. And the Rebbe points out that he says in the fashais, ruchais, and the shamais. What does that mean? Everyone has, as you know, 5 parts to a soul. You have the nefesh, ruach, neshama, chay yichid. The chay yichid not really involved in your function. That's more in tainug and rutzin. It's more on a higher level. Your seichel, your middays, and your action is nefesh, ruach, neshama. Your neshama is your seichel. Nefesh is your middays, ruach is your action. This is how you conduct yourself. A person might be similar to someone else on a ruach, but on nefesh we have 2 different stories. Or in myself, on my ruach level, my action level, I'm like this. In my thinking level, I'm this, which means even within an individual person, it's not just people from each other. An individual person has layers to yourself. You have your machshava, dibur ma'aseh, that's one thing. You have your emotions, another thing. You have your intellect, another thing. We operate differently. Some people are very intellectually similar to other people, but in emotion, they're very differently. We think the same, but we don't feel the same. Because we have similar parts. We have similar ruach, but not the same nefesh. Or similar nefesh, not the same neshama. So we can have different parts also that are unique. So Hashem, it's almost like he not only gave each person their own neshama and spirit and direction, he gave also layers to each person. You got like a blue, red, and white. You got a blue, blue, and a blue. You got a red, green, and blue. And everybody got their 3 colors. That is a composite of your story, who you are. And that's what makes us so unique and individual. So we're not just externally different, that we all have different faces, and we look different, and we have different bodies and shapes and sizes, how we interact physically and biologically. We have much more than that. Our souls are different, and because that's what we give it all different parts of Hashem's fragmented soul distribution program. We call that. Okay. And look what he says here. And it's not just the time, the place where you live, it's the time when you live. Your soul coming down in the 1800s, his job was mainly to live in Mesiras Nefesh running in the pogrom. Your soul coming down in 2025, it's to have a nice home and to care for other people going through difficult times. Your soul, meaning every soul not only is placed in a person throughout right now in 2025, but the different journeys of your soul when it came down in the 1800s, when it came down in the 1200s, when it was here in the 900s, etc. Like the famous teaching in the Gemara is a very known teaching of Chassidus. There's a story where there's a whole Gemara there. I looked it up this morning where each rabbi is saying, what I wish I could do. I wish I'd be involved with keeping Shabbos. I wish I'd be making Havdalah. I wish I'm making Kiddush. I wish I would do. Everyone's talking about things they would wish. Rabbi Yosef turns to Rabbi Yosef. The one he turned to was Yosef, the son of Rabbah, the famous Rabbah. Maybe the famous we had him at the very beginning of Tanya. The Rabbah's son, Yosef, he turns to Yosef. This Yosef turns to Yosef and says, Yosef, Avuch, your father, but my Habazer, what was his shining mitzvah? And the Gemara and the Rebbe explains, actually the Rebbe talks about it too, is that it doesn't mean which mitzvah did he do. He did all the mitzvahs. He did all the mitzvahs with tremendous dedication. But which mitzvah shined out? Like we could say by the Rebbe, if we want to focus on two mitzvahs that the Rebbe shines in always, tzedakah, the Rebbe spent so much time giving tzedakah and Ahavas Yisrael. To me, those mitzvahs you see by the Rebbe over and over and over and over, the Rebbe gave out everything in the world to help one Jew sit and stand by dollars, Yeshidis, and put aside the whole world. So, Avuch, your father, my Habazer, what was his main thing? What meaning? Every person, even a tzaddik like a Rabbah was a tzaddik that couldn't die. It said the Malach HaMavos they needed him in heaven to ask a question. They had a problem in halacha about the laws of tzaras, and they needed his opinion. But he's down there, they needed a human being to paskin. So that whole trick had to get him to come up there, But he was a guy that was an unbelievable holy man. That was the question at the beginning of Tanya. How could he have a Beinoni? You're
putting it in a difficult position.
And we know he was mistaken. But how could you mistake yourself? If you were a person that does sins, you could say, I make a mistake. The Beinoni maybe is partially sins. But if Rabbah made a mistake, there's a Beinoni. He must say a Beinoni never sinned in his life. Because Rabbah never sins. How did he make the mistake? And we explained in Tanya what that means in chapter 13, when we got back to it. Chapter 11, 12, yeah. So he's saying here, Avuch. So Yosef turns to Yosef and says, Avuch, your father, Rabbah, but my Habazer, what was his main mitzvah? He said, my father, Amalei Tzitzis Chulu. Tzitzis was his biggest mitzvah. And he said a story at one time he was climbing on a ladder and his tzitzis caught on a little, it gets caught. I have him in a doorpost different times. The tzitzis gets caught. Never happens to you for some reason. It happens to me. It gets caught and it rips. His tzitzis ripped. He wouldn't come down from the ladder until someone came and redid his tzitzis on the ladder. The whole story, how, and again, tzitzis is a mitzvah. You just take them off. You don't have to wear a four-cornered garment. The law is if you have a four-cornered garment, you got to put strings on it. Just take off the four-cornered garment. No, he wouldn't come down from the ladder without it. So you see that each individual person has their particular mitzvah. But he says the truth is every generation has their mitzvah. Besides that every person has their mitzvah and where you live and which time, before we said no matter when you live. But generations as a whole have their mitzvahs. It's a very beautiful teaching. I forget where it's from. I saw this a few years ago. It's really nice. It says in the Amidah, we say, Baruch Atah Hashem, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. It says the Jewish people, we have the God of Avram, of Yitzchak and Yaakov. What does that mean? That throughout our life, there are three mitzvahs that God gives us, primarily. Mitzvahs related to Torah study, mitzvahs related to prayer, and mitzvahs related to chesed, kindness. Avraham is kindness. Yitzchak is prayer. And we know he says he prayed in the field. And Yaakov is called he's a man of the tent. He sits and studies. So in general, our zchusim come in the zchus of Avram, of Chesed, of Yitzchak, of Tefillah, and Yaakov of Torah study. When we finish off the whole prayer, Baruch Atah Hashem, Magen Avram. Why do we say Magen Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov? He says, because we're talking about the finishing the bracha reflects on the last generation before Mashiach comes. We're going to be a generation, our quality is Magen Avram. We are Chesed. We're not the biggest Torah scholars. There were generations where there was Torah scholars of books being written, generations of the Talmud. There were generations of Chassidim who sat and prayed for hours and prayed. What's our generation? And you see it, the amount of chesed. You see these charity campaigns. You see kindnesses, people helping each other. Our generation's quality is chesed in an unbelievable way. The amount of people sending money to Israel, the amount of people that it's incredible. It's not normal what we do. So he says, and every generation also has their mitzvah. I just gave you in general the three, but the truth is, there was certain generations that main mitzvah then was maybe Challah. Maybe mitzvah that generation was Havdalah. The mitzvah of the generation is Shabbos. Every generation. So also, besides the fact that everybody has their personal story, every generation has its story, has its responsibility. So again, to me, it's a fascinating chapter because it gives you a window to understand why certain generations, certain times, certain things, and today you see different. It depends what your job is. Every person, you never know who's doing a better job with their mission. When you find out this, what the Alter Rebbe says here, you no longer have the ability or power or right to say who's doing a better job, me or you. Their job was to have guests, and they're doing it extraordinarily. Your job was to sit and learn. You're not doing a good job. So who says I'm better than them because I sit and learn 2 hours a day? You're supposed to learn 7 hours a day. Meaning no one knows whose mitzvah is what. If your particular journey, that was one of the beauties of having a Rebbe. Is the beauty of having a Rebbe. The Rebbe tells you, go do this, go do that. He tells you what your job is. And that's how you know so many things in life that you see the blessings that come. How do you know what to do? The Rebbe sees your soul, sees what's lacking, sees what you got to do. It's like the famous story. One person told, go keep kosher. One person said, be careful with Shabbos candles. Which one? How do you know which one? How do you know? Okay. So he's like this. And he says, this is just like the body, just like the parts of the body. Every body part has its skill. The eye's job is to see. The hand's job is to touch. The ear is to hear. So 1 second. How come? Because that's how Hashem made it. There's one part of that body does this, one does that. Same thing is one part of the Jewish people, which means just like we said the 613 in Hamshachis, in mitzvahs, and in the Neshoma and in Guf, the same thing is in generations and in people. Each one of us are another part of Adam's global man and Yaakov's global man, which means, or woman, which means that basically, if you're a person that's more compassionate, you're part of his heart. If you're a person that goes dusty, you're part of his feet. If you're a person that likes to be empathetic, maybe you're part of the ears. You feel, you hear people, etc. Just like every part of the body has its particular job, same thing, every generation has its particular mission. He says, for an example, the eye has to see, the ear to hear. Same thing, every single mitzvah has its particular light that comes from it. Now, he says, even though Shakol Nefesh mi Yisrael tzricha lovei b'gegulim l'kayim kol yag mitzvahs, even though we say that every single person has to do all the mitzvahs, so it's not like you get one mitzvah to do; you have to do all the mitzvahs. So we come back and nevertheless, this story it says it doesn't say avuch b'may havi osa. What did he do? B'may havi zar. What did he shine? You see, while we have to do all the mitzvahs, every person has to shine one thing. So we're given a job. Make this room ready for the king, make their house ready for Shabbos. You tell one kid you clean the bedroom. Everyone has to keep the house neat. But you go polish the silver. You go wash the windows. You go, sparkle this. Every person is there, not mitzvah to do, but mitzvah to shine in. And this is the novelty here. We're talking here about an extra. Of course, you have to do all the commandments. You can't say, listen, my mitzvah is charity. I don't gotta do this. No. Everybody got to do all the mitzvahs, but there's one mitzvah where you got to shine in. You got to take this and shine like a. The SSAs, more in quantity, more in quality. Double and double. Much more than all the other mitzvahs. And you can see it in our community, see it live, you see it in yourself. Everyone has certain mitzvahs, and sometimes we slacken it. And like I said, you have the 3 ways to know what comes your way, what gifts and natural abilities or interests does your body have, and what's challenging for you. And again, don't feel I'm not challenged, I'm not doing a good job. Just thank Hashem. But the story of our life is given us by clues, which is our soul. This is why Yosef said to Yosef, "B'mei have a zar tvei daika," and that's what he says. And why does he shine more? Because now he takes the next one. Not only he shined in all the mitzvahs, but there was one mitzvah he shined more. It's like the famous story that we talk about Yosef when he was in prison. My father mentioned it in the sermon a few weeks ago. And when he's in prison, he turns to the baker and the wine guy. He says, "Your faces don't look so happy." No kidding. I'm in a dungeon here in Egypt in the year 2000 before the Common Era. It's not even a good dungeon. It's dusty. It smells. What do you mean? Yosef noticed that the sadness of today was more sad than yesterday, more perplexed, more disturbed look on the face. In other words, in the converse, the Rebbe saying here, not only that Rabbah kept every mitzvah bezahir, but which was zahir tefei, which mitzvah shined more. Not only did all the mitzvahs, not only shined in all the mitzvahs, but got to be one mitzvah had a little more shine. He said, yeah, those tzitzis. And just so he knows this, now he's going to finish off this point. This is not logical. We said, what does it mean? What lot did I get? Not only you got a chelik, you got a certain part that's yours. Generally, you got a chelik, like you got a soul. Not only you got a particular job which is yours, but you should know it was given by luck. By luck. What do I mean luck? Right. Not that Hashem didn't have a reason. There is no reason that we need. It's a lot of reason from above. It's coming from a place in God, in the deepest essence of Hashem. This particular light that's given to one particular soul to be more shining in that mitzvah, it's a no understandable logical reason. It's above the level of das. This is what went up into God's mind. This is what God wants to do. The only metaphor we have that down here is like a lottery. Now, what's fascinating is we said this letter was cut off by the sons who put this in here. They cut off the beginning and the end of the letter because this is really a fundraising letter. So, what was the rest of the letter that was cut out? It's very interesting. The rest of the letter was cut out, just a few lines. The Alber finishes off, and this, my friends, is a mitzvah of our generation. Our generation is a mitzvah of tzedakah. And you should know the mission we have today is tzedakah, and that's why you should give tzedakah and support Israel, etc. So what did the Alter finish off that they didn't put in here in the final edition? It was kept out of this thing, was how he concluded now the sale, the closing. He gave a whole speech about the power of a mitzvah, the power of the soul, and the opportunity, and the purpose of the mission. And our generation, he says, to give tzedakah. So a friend of mine, I was listening to him talk about this chapter, and he says, I have a theory why, and it could be right, it could be it's wrong. He says, a theory why it's this chapter, why he cuts this off. He says, because he was talking about his generation. His generation, we're now 250 years later. Maybe the mitzvah changed now. Maybe now Tate's obviously Israel. Right. So in the letter that he wrote to the people, he wrote, our generation is tzedakah. But the book that's being published for generations, maybe our generation, obviously Israel is primary. Maybe our generation is more important to be not jealous of someone else's primary. Maybe it's to be satisfied with Elad as primary. He says, so therefore, maybe the reason, again, this is a theory, maybe the reason why the sons didn't put in the last few lines of the letter is because we're going to read this and say, oh, our generation is tzedakah. Tzedakah is one part of hundreds of cheseds, one part of hundreds of acts of kindness. Maybe we have a different thing. Maybe it's, so therefore, maybe that's the reason. But the bottom line is, the closing of the letter was, the Alter Rebbe says, and our generation, our mitzvah is tzedakah. That's so cool that you had the Alter Rebbe, and that's why you see, by the way, the Alter Rebbe went to people, squeezed them. This is talking about people in the shtetls, people who had nothing. And people didn't have, when they gave tzedakah to Israel, they really had to give their bread and butter. They didn't have a shirt to wear. And they gave that to Israel. The Alter Rebbe felt these souls don't appreciate how incredible it's. Imagine if you knew the life-saving quality of a person doing a certain act, but the person has to sell their house to do it. Realize I'm doing the greatest favor. I'm doing the biggest mitzvah. We go around telling someone put on tefillin, it's a big mitzvah. Light Shabbos candles is a big mitzvah. There's a mitzvah the Rebbe says many times that someone who gets someone else to give tzedakah, gadol ha'ma'aseh, the person who gets the other person gets a reward because he made the other person give tzedakah. The one who pushes the person to give tzedakah gets a bigger reward. Fundraisers are the most blessed people, but it's not a fun job. But the bottom line is, the act of tzedakah is so powerful. So here he's telling us each of us have a neshoma, each have a story. May Hashem bless us that we should fulfill our missions and have happy, healthy, meaningful lives, full of blessings. And we should have missions that are good, not just spiritually, but good physically.